Hi, hello, good morning, everybody. My name is Nash Segura, and today I'm going to be talking to Daniel and Evangeline from Olive Tree State. So, Daniel, he has extensive experience in the financial sector. He's been the CEO of Olive Tree State for the past few years, and he's a lawyer by training. Evangeline, she's the assistant director for partnerships, and her work primarily focuses on conceptualizing and implementation of the integrated social mission solution for the whole company. So today, we're going to be learning about how Olive Tree States has been working in providing affordable housing to mid-low income families in emerging markets. Especially, they have this huge, amazing project going on in Vietnam. So, welcome to you both. And Daniel, would you please share with us a little bit more about Olive Tree Estates? What do you guys do? And eventually, how or why did you decide to embark in this mission?
Well, thank you, Nash. Please allow me also to thank ShelterTech and Habitat for this wonderful opportunity to share about the Olive Tree Estates journey. So essentially, Olive Tree is a be good, do good, and for good company. Our vision is to be a positive force for change in emerging markets by catalyzing the growth and development of sustainable and healthy communities for the masses and the underserved. To break it down a little bit further into specifics, our mission is to provide affordable quality housing as the bedrock of a holistic social impact solution, which includes localized and contextualized community development platforms, for example, family resource centers in every olive tree residential housing estate, and community development elements being amenities, services such as early childhood education, healthcare, social services, etc. So, what drives us? Housing is a fundamental human need, and the lack of social and affordable housing is a global conundrum that is particularly challenging in emerging economies. We're very passionate about providing an integrated and holistic social impact solution for the benefit of individuals, families, and local communities. Whilst housing is the cornerstone of our approach, it is only one of the pieces in our impact and influence model because we all know that a house is not a home and does not necessarily a happy family and community make. In Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, which is our principal area of operations for now, there's an annual demand for more than 30,000 housing units, of which at least 50% relate to social and affordable housing. Even though last year was unusual because of the twin effects of the pandemic and preparations for the national election, which slowed down the permitting and approval process for housing developments nationwide, it was still somewhat surprising that hardly any affordable housing units were offered for sale by developers. This highlights the dearth of supply in the affordable housing segment of the market and the acute pressures faced by stakeholder buyers. The pent-up demand for quality affordable housing in Ho Chi Minh City and elsewhere is very significant. In Indonesia, the social housing market is undersupplied by about 8 million units. Olive Tree Estates is very committed to do our little bit to ease the demand-supply imbalance throughout Southeast Asia, and in the first instance, Vietnam. Thank you, Nash.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Daniel. I think indeed, Dash, about talking about Vietnam, where we are operating, about these families who are living in the cities. We've identified that many Vietnamese families, especially parents, they do work very long hours, 5.5 days or even more per week. And they leave their children in the care of their grandparents, their nannies, or full day in the childcare centers. So in a way, they do face the usual parenting issues, as well as child discipline challenges, like many parents living in fast-paced Asian cities like Singapore. So during the lockdown last year, we do observe from our friends that an really integrated family center would very much help in providing support for the Vietnamese families in a very holistic manner, in that especially in those challenging seasons of their lives. So besides supporting family life, we also see that our integrated center could provide services in childcare, health, and overall wellness for the individuals.
That is actually quite interesting. And that I find this a very particular way of doing business. And, like all of this holistic approach that you take into consideration to go to move your work. So when did you realize that Olive Tree States needs to have this a very holistic approach to the whole solution? How did you come up with that?
A great question, Nash. At Olive Tree, we are big believers in the strengths-based community development approach in our social impact model. We believe that being close to the ground, listening to what the residents need, and discerning what the residents can contribute one to another puts us in a better position to work with our various partner stakeholders to curate the right mix the right mix of services and amenities, which are best suited to nurture the growth of sustainable communities over the long term. In our view, and this is just our view, the provision of a holistic and specially curated impact solution with our residents as key stakeholders is more than just about expressing social equity. Critically, it is also about strengthening the social fabric and capital in our housing estates. In Singapore, we're by and large very privileged. Approximately 90% of Singaporeans live in social housing units, and public services and amenities such as education, healthcare, family support services, they are nearly always a stone's throw away. But this is not often the case in emerging markets. So for Olive Tree and our like-minded partners, providing a contextualized and customized suite of services within our Olive Tree residential housing estates is really addressing the low-hanging fruit, and there's really no rocket science in this holistic approach.
So Nash, happy to share that really for Olive Tree Estates, we see that it is important that we recognize what is already strong in the community and we continue to support them in their growth. Like, for example, during the COVID lockdown last year, we have heard and read stories of how kampong spirit comes alive in the cities like Ho Chi Minh and at Hanoi. And when you saw business owners or families, they pack the dry food, the groceries, and they lay them on the tables along the roadside for low-income families to pick up on their motorbikes. Then there's also delivery of ready-cooked meals by various groups to needy families and the local charities. So we saw that the willingness of the community to step up and help one another in times of difficulties is very evident in the Vietnamese society. Hence, we want to tap on these strengths, the existing social capital, when we consider the type of support that we want to bring in to the families living in these new housing communities that we have. Yes.
It's I really find so fascinating this, and I'm thinking about what you just mentioned, Evangeline, and the kampong spirit. So when you go into this new community, how do you actually make sure that this kampong spirit continues, but at the same time that your work continues to be relevant for all the stakeholders and at the end of the day, the end users' needs? How did you do that?
Another great question, Nash. Um, for Team Olive Tree, we remind ourselves that it's very important, it's critical that we remain humble. We must always remember and recognize that we are foreigners. We're not members of the local community. And whilst we will always be more than willing helpers and catalysts, we will and can never be in our target markets on a full-time basis. It's always been our very strong belief that the local service providers and stakeholder families and communities must be the real owners of any impact solution. After all, this is their kampong. The longevity and effectiveness of any community development model is premised on this important reality. And this helps us to explain why we value communication with our local friends and partners so very much. It's this recognition that the locals must be the ones to inform our steps, as they are the ones with the best appreciation of the needs on ground zero and what services are required to meet those needs.
Yeah, indeed. For Olive Tree, we see that the role of our family center to be really the facilitator and enabler for the community. because we want to tap on this existing kampong spirit and engage the interests of the residents to come together, organize activities that they will enjoy. So in a way, we do play the role, like igniting the spark for neighbors to come together, to network together, and we certainly cannot take the place of the residents in building up their community. And of course, we also observe Vietnamese by nature, they're very relational and they're friendly. So with time, they do open up to each other and share their lives, life on life. So, like example, last year we heard stories during the lockdown when families they directly approach our ground partners through messaging, through calls, just to seek help for their challenges at home front during that difficult few months. So we recognize that trust relationship is so important and fundamental for a community to thrive.
I think that's like a good currency at the end of the day. Like doing this type of work, it's kind of like the foundation for especially I think this type of work in and emerging markets as well. So um, when you go into these communities and besides what we shared just now, what other type of challenges do you face or have you faced in the past? So for example, perhaps you can help us to understand what type of changes you have seen, you've experienced along the way, or even some challenges with these, like difficult times and going last year until now with the pandemic. What have you experienced?
Nash, truth be told, we've been very blessed and fortunate. Currently, we have adequate finances to support our building and rollout plans for our more than 6,000 affordable housing units in Vietnam. Beyond that, we continue to work hard to raise additional capital to invest in our future housing projects and expand our impact along Olive Tree's arc of influence. The challenge uh, has always been to find and marry up with like-minded and like-hearted impact investors who appreciate our vision and mission and aren't all driven by supernormal investment returns. But so that there's no doubt whatsoever, social and affordable housing development isn't a bad business by any means. It's defensive and sustainable, and for an investor, it allows you to sleep easy at night. In terms of learning, we're constantly reminded that doing business in emerging markets is never straightforward. And it is a tremendous privilege to have trusted and knowledgeable and effective local partners on the ground. Whilst we have literally haven't sent a strategic partner from Vietnam, we're still waiting to partner up with the right persons, entities, enterprises in other markets. As I mentioned already, Olive Tree is committed to offering integrated amenities in our housing estates. Currently, we are launching our pilot family centers in Ho Chi Minh City at our partners' existing residential developments. These pilots and ongoing community engagement will inform us of the needs and concerns of the residents, families, and community. We're quickly recognizing the need for even more smart and welcoming homes in view of what we have learned with our local partners during the ongoing pandemic. The key for us is to build intentionally for relevance, to build intentionally for relevance. What we, our stakeholder buyers, the community, what we all don't fancy is building white elephants.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting way also to get close to the community and to really get to know them. And that brings me to actually my next question. When you are, for example, running a pilot, how do you go about collecting all this information from the community? How do you make sure that it's a like feasible or reliable information? And what do you look for in a partnership?
Yes, indeed, this is a good question. I think as Daniel has shared earlier, for all of us at Olive Tree, we take a humble position that we do not know the ground as much as our local partners. We recognize our local partners, they have the experience to conduct conversations with the ground, with the communities, to better understand them. So we work very closely with them. And this really requires a certain level of trust relationship to establish with the ground, and this takes time. So the information that our ground partners shared with us about the state of families, the needs of the communities, all these will inform us to strategically plan our social impact work for relevance. So in a way, we're always very open to conversations with potential partners, be it INGO, local NGO, social enterprises, with the same heart and mind, that is, with that common interest to support the growth and well-being of families and communities from the mid-low income groups. We also recognize that we have to learn from what COVID has taught us regarding the need for human connectedness. So even with the limits of physical meetups, neighbors, they do converse. We realize and they connect with one another virtually. In Singapore, we heard about this, about all the platforms that were set up. It's the same in Vietnam. So to share this intangible support for one another. So it's very, very key for us to work with partners who recognize the importance of technology in community development, professional services, as well in our integrated amenities.
Nice. And what about you, Daniel? Do you have anything else there to add?
Well, thanks, Evangeline, for the insight. Nash, your question to us about what we look for in our partnerships and in our various stakeholder arrangements, that's a really important question. For us, having a trusted, like-minded partner, and you've heard Evangeline use the word trust on many occasions already. So for us, having a trusted and like-minded partner with proven and tested execution capability is huge. I've been in business for many years, and many a time I have to look at the rearview mirror, and I wonder if my local partner is going to do a number on me or us. As it's common knowledge that one has to be, you know, vigilant in character risk assessment. With NHO, our partner in Vietnam, we could not have asked for a better stakeholder partner. They're professional, they're at the top of their game, and relationally, and this is the fun bit, we do so much life together. But don't get me wrong, we do have our differences, and we do have our arguments and conflict from time to time. But because we've traded so extensively in the currency of trust, the foundations which support and frame our partnership, they're rock solid, absolutely rock solid. Again, there's no rocket science here. Intuitively, we all know that we can only travel as far as trust takes us.
Well, finally, I need to ask one more last question, and I would love to hear if you have any advice for ShelterTech's accelerator participants. Anything that you could share with them?
Well, thanks, Nash. Borrowing the words from our local partner, National Housing Organization in Vietnam, their principles would always remind me and us, do not be prideful and full of yourself. Be humble. Regard yourself as a learner and understand and appreciate the culture of the locals and the sensitivities on the ground. And they're reminder to us, be committed to serve the one, the few, and the many. As one who's been given that wonderful, precious privilege to serve in this area of influence and impact.
Thank you so much. I really, really have enjoyed this conversation and learning about how this holistic approach that you guys have. I really think it's key for success. Thank you so much again for your time and sharing all of your experience with us. And for all the participants, please feel free to go on Olive Tree State social media, on their website. If you feel like you need to talk to them, please feel free to reach out to them. I'm very sure that they're going to be more than happy to speak to you. Thank you, Evangeline. Thank you, Daniel, so much.
Thank you, Nash.
Thank you, Nash. We are looking forward to connect with everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.